Okay, right. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about DAFNI and what we've been doing in the last year, and a little bit about why we should use DAFNI. Give a bit of context for the day, really. Okay, so exactly a year ago today, we held our launch event, a virtual event online. We had, Ottiline Laser came along and gave a keynote speak. And we also had keynote speeches from Gordon Marston and Catherine Brown from the Climate Change Commission. And at that conference, we gave, at that launch event, we gave a demonstration and we gave an indication of what we've been doing on the development phase of DAFNI. Gave a few examples of how we were running pilots, and very much focused on what DAFNI is and what DAFNI offers. And so now we are today, and this is all prior to slides. I thought I corrected this. Exactly a year on, we're here. Very pleased to be in Manchester on our hybrid event. Very glad also to say that we've got almost the same number of people coming today when we combine in person and online together. So it's great to see that the interest in DAFNI has been maintained over there. That's been really great. But we wanted to kind of very different emphasis on this particular year's iteration of the conference. We want much more, instead of us telling you about what DAFNI is and what DAFNI is about, we wanted this to be very much more a user-focused event. Saying, look, having users come to the meeting and say, what are they doing with DAFNI? I think that will give you a far better impression about how DAFNI can really be used in practice. So we're not giving a demo, standing up here and giving demos. We're not talking about the details of DAFNI. The DAFNI team are here around the room, and in the breaks and lunchtime, you can go and talk to them. You can go and see. You can see demos from DAFNI in person and discuss your particular problems with them individually. What we want to do here is listen, hear what our user community are really doing and really want to do. So, but I want to give a little bit of a reminder, nevertheless, of what we've been, where DAFNI has come from. Jim's given some of that context. I was going to give a little bit more, and sort of where it's going, nevertheless. So, Jim has kind of already said, we have masses and masses of world-leading research going on in the UK and around the world in modelling infrastructure systems. So this is just some examples from the DAFNI partnership of systems that they've been building in things like transport, in things like flood management, in things like economic development, and then combining these things together. And so a huge amount of really good, excellent research going on building these simulation and analytics capabilities, scattered around the universities, scattered around different groups, depending on the particular research groups they are. So the issue is to meet those challenges that Jim mentioned of the scaling up and the future scale we need of this research, to support that investment, we need to be able to sustain these. We need to be able to make these things more accessible, more usable by other groups, and scale them up as well, so they can cover greater resolution, greater geographical area, and work together to look at their interactions. So a large computational challenge on maintaining these systems and expanding these systems. It's really exploiting this research. So DAFNI came an idea as a building a computing platform, but really as a community hub, a place where we can bring those models and the data together from all those different research groups, make them available in a repository so people can find them and reuse them, and then execute them too, and then really support those collaborations that use those models, so we can bring them together, have them executed, combine them together into multi-systems models, and then to really explore the space. And then a legacy, a place where beyond the length of particular research projects, we can make those models and data available long term shareable and reproducible in the future. So that's kind of the idea behind DAFNI. It has been, so it was funded under a program called UCRIT. The opportunity came up under that program, the UK Collaboratorium for Research in Infrastructure in Cities, a major program that took place, started taking place in 2017 to invest in infrastructure research in facilities in universities. It was in 3 sections. The largest amount was building actual physical laboratories. So there's a number of these around the UK. We visited the National Buried Infrastructure Facility in Birmingham just a couple of weeks ago. A very impressive facility where you can test things around tunnelings and buried pipes and things. Very incredibly impressive institute there. And the other part is in urban observatories, so instrumenting cities and seeing what you can do with the data you can gather by instrumenting these cities with sensors. And then DAFNI kind of sits in the middle as a computing platform to support the data that comes off these various facilities. And we've particularly been working with urban observatories to see what we can do with data. So the development program was a phase which we did in between 2017 and last year to build the DAFNI platform. And DAFNI is a partnership, so there are 12 universities involved, and again, led by Jim. These are the PIs involved. And STFC our scientific computing in STFC were asked to take part as development and hosting partner. So we are continuing to develop and host and develop the system as we go forward. And this is, I haven't got the photographs for everybody here, so this is a list of the team that we have at the moment. Most of the, a number of these people are in the room, so please go and talk to them, find out more about what DAFNI and what's going on. And you know Marion, of course, who's been, Marion and Rocio particularly, who've been working incredibly hard on putting this event and talking to, I'm sure, most of you. Okay, so a little bit about the DAFNI platform. We have a dedicated HTC cluster, not huge, but nevertheless will give us some computing power, quite a significant amount of storage available to you. We've set this up as a Kubernetes cluster. This gives us real advantages in how we host and manage models and workflows that I'll mention later. We can give more computing power for applications, and that has been proven that we can really speed up some of the speed up and scale some applications there. And there's a number of hardware investments in universities, particularly high-performance workstations, visualization capabilities in the partner universities, which has been a little bit delayed with COVID. But one of the things we're looking at now is how we can then have the core facility work with those hardware investment in universities. DAFNI then has a software stack on top of that hardware platform, which has a number of components. A database, sort of a repository of data that's available to you, and which users can upload data into and then search and discover the data they want. Then there's a modeling service, kind of the heart of DAFNI is the modeling and workflow system. There's some capability to provide visualization, either simple visualizations or rich visualizations, The nice part and the service is kind of underlying enabling infrastructure, if you like. The nicest sort of is a way that we deploy applications in the system, and the security services kind of underpins the whole thing. We have a good, strong access control system that maintains the separation and gives user control about who they release the information on their models and data to. And this is kind of a brief picture of some functionality. I won't go through this in any detail at all. As I said, we're a security system. You can register to log in. You can find data. You can, in the data catalog, access data, access the models, upload your models, build workflows, execute workflows using the data in the system, and then generate visualizations. Not particularly. Yeah, I'm not going to go through any detail at all. Please go and talk to our to the DAFNI team in the room, look for demonstrations. But I want to go through a little bit about what we feel DAFNI can offer, and what DAFNI can offer to particular groups of stakeholders. So, you know, one of our, obviously, coming from where we are, and our prime set of stakeholders are infrastructure systems researchers. So these are, you know, people who are setting a research agenda, building on the previous results, looking for prior results, exploring research challenges, and working collaboratively, in particular, to do those research challenges. And what we feel DAFNI offers, what I mentioned, is this space, this collaboration space to share, share work with research partners, giving that space to explore those research questions at a greater scale. And as partners are coming from different places and coming to a common hub, it allows different domains of interest to come together and interact together in the workflow system. And it's then ultimately a space to share and publish reproducible results. And I think that's very important in a sort of a much more, an environment that encourages verifiable and validatable research. So an example of this is, I don't want to preempt into talks later, but a couple of examples, just quick snapshots in the OpenClim project, which is building a shared framework in DAFNI. You can see this sharing of data and sharing of models from different groups to build the work group coming together. So the data and the models provided in OpenClim are provided from very different partners, very different institutes, all coming together to share those models together, and then, as we'll see later, to build workflows combining those models together to do sophisticated analyses. So I think it's a really good example of this sharing environment. The other thing that's really good for researchers is publishing fair and reproducible research. So by publishing into DAFNI, we are keeping them accessible, making them available to the community. We provide quite a rich metadata framework for that data, and indeed for models and workflows too, which gives us strong findability. And then, because we can rerun and reuse the models and the workflows, we got really good reproducibility as well. And the version control system that we have in the system, it gives really good, strong traceability. You can work out which version has been used for which output. And if you want, you can do things like release the results to reviewers. If you want to say, well, here's my result, give the access to the reviewer to actually review and validate and rerun your result, if you're potentially to check you're doing the right kind of things. There's still work to be done in this area. We need better support for things like DOIs and better descriptions, richer descriptions, particularly ontological descriptions. And we've just been published or worked with Liz last year, Liz Varga, who's just published a paper on this, on infrastructure and citizen projects, doing a review of the ontological landscape underlying systems like DAFNI, and making recommendations on how we would then support those into the future. And then there's the people who are doing the modeling themselves, the research software engineers. So these are the people who are needing to use the computation to explore those research questions. They want to get data from different sources. They want to be able to scale up, high resolution, greater coverage, and build these rich systems-to-systems modeling from different domains. And this is where I think DAFNI really offers the space to build these rich interactions and rich workflows. We've got a lot of, so I think one of the main features of DAFNI is this modeling combination environment. So we have, he's focused on the NIMS, so the modeling service, We use containerization technology, a good deal, Docker, so we can bring in code and systems that are written in quite different environments around this, and we're getting quite a lot of experience on how Docker can be used to capture different programming languages, different environments, different paradigms, and some are easier than others. We found that very much so. But we can do that, and it keeps the development of the models independent, but you can still bring them together and execute in the same environment. And this has actually been really, really valuable. And then we can build these workflows. We're just in the process of revising the workflow interface to give a much more flexible and adaptable workflow interface. This is kind of a snapshot of where that's going. It's not quite released yet. But we can build these systems to build these complex systems and systems models. And then they can be shared between your collaborators. And this is allowing us to build really rich workflows. And again, not wanting to anticipate what's going to be said later, but the Credo project has built some of the kind of richest workflows that we've seen so far in DAFNI. I don't expect you to read this, but this is quite a rich pipeline. And it kind of does, it's interesting, it does sort of three things really in the workflow. A first phase of initialization, setting up databases, data preparation phase, that's doing what we're calling adapters, which kind of do data transforms. A kind of core modeling phase, which combines a number of different models together and then iterates over them into a loop, doing different time steps, for example. And then finally, a data publication and visualization step, where you're generating tailoring the exact outputs you want to make them available afterwards. So this workflow system, is proving increasingly rich, and we've done quite a lot of work in this area over the last year, particularly on making this more flexible by separating the parameters you do in the workflow from the actual workflow itself, using what we call parameter sets, and new features, particularly what we call service models, which are sort of long-running processes, typically databases that run through the system, and iterators and loops, and also things that are iterators and loops, and also things that seem quite simple but actually really, really help the user, like improvements to the way we handle groups and the way we do version control. A lot of model development can be quite woolly. What is a version? People kind of add a little bit here and they change a little bit here, and that makes it hard to share with collaborators. If we can say, well, this is the published version, and we're using version 1.6, get a slightly different result if you use version 1.7. You can then share that information with your collaborators, and they can do that proper reproducibility that we've been talking about with the versions. So a real strength there. Still things I think we can do in this space, definitely. We're only really discovering how we can use the workflow system to do cleverer things with the workflow system. And there's still much improvements we can do. This notion of adapters I think is quite interesting. Sort of service modules which we can reuse in different places. And things like updatable data feeds for sort of real-time stuff. That's kind of pointing towards digital twins. And I think just heuristics, just information about how you can build interesting and useful workflows. I won't really mention visualizations. We have a sort of backend. We had this visualization service last year. Either quick visualization, you can kind of do a drag and drop interface to build a quick plot or a quick graph, or you can build rich visualizations by pushing data into Jupyter notebooks and using the capability that Jupyter provides. Okay, my final group is research collaborators. Sorry, I'll say that again. Research collaborators and stakeholders. So those people who you're working with, typically outside academia, typically government, industry people, they may be providing models and data, but they're also typically wanting to see results. because they are the policy and decision makers. They're not necessarily the modelling experts, you know, that they may be, but they want to be able to see what you're doing. And what we've really found has been really valuable for those people is DAFNI offers a neutral space to share data and models. And I think it's really important. I mean, particularly when we're working with commercial people, there's lots of barriers between commercial people. You know, there's where each together. Come to us, a safe space, a neutral space, and okay, you still have to talk to lawyers. Can't get away from it. You know, they're very worried about their data sharing agreements, but they feel more comfortable perhaps on working with us, and that's been a really, really useful experience. It gives that common place to access the results. And the sort of transparency, reproducibility we mentioned earlier gives that confidence. It's not a black box somewhere that's been generated to produce a result for that entity and then disappears and you don't know how it's been done before. You can go back and have a look at it. And this access framework gives control to the user, gives that again, that confidence of a secure environment. So you know, we do have, you know, working in a place like DAFNI certainly gives confidence to research collaborators. Okay, so that's more or less all I had to say. I just want to say a few words on getting involved. So we're currently in a phase of DAFNI which we call DAFNI Rose, because that's funded under a program from UPSC called Research Only Strategic Equipment program. We're about halfway through it now, and looking to what's coming next. And this is about moving from the development phase, which we did for the first 4 years, into a production phase, building a user base, building a user community. So I think today we'll see some of the results of the user community we've been building. And I'm looking at, you know, particularly working with research users. We've been talking to CDTs about doing some training with them. And looking to further developments, particularly things like digital twins and improving the information infrastructure. And also forming multidisciplinary partnerships, and this has led to what we might call user domain projects. So this is separate funding that's coming from DAFNI Rose on a number of projects that we participated very directly. And I won't go into them, but most of them are presenting, a number of them presenting today. They have divided into roughly 2 emerging themes with a lot of overlap. Firstly, digital twinning. You know, what are the fundamentals of digital twinning? How do you combine models into digital twinning? How do we then have dynamic data in digital twins? How do we bring digital twins into a common information infrastructure? So lots of research questions there. So some of the things have been on that. And the second is the interaction with the natural environment. And so this is why we've made the theme today, working with natural environment. A number of the projects that we have now engaged with are working in the environmental sector, a number of them directly funded by the Natural Environment Research Council. And this kind of is perhaps natural. The sort of infrastructure systems we are dealing with are naturally geospatial and naturally have that interactions with, affected by and affected on the natural environment and environmental impact. So kind of that's perhaps not surprising. So that kind of reflects our day to day. We have a number of presentations on around natural environment, a number of presentations looking at digital twinning. Okay, so access to DAFNI under the DAFNI Rose programme is essentially free to UK researchers who are working in the field. So you can sign up. We've made the registration process much simpler. It was a bit cumbersome previously. We've now made that rather simpler. We've kind of been revising our terms and conditions and things like that, just doing some of that background work to make that a bit clearer. So now it's just the form you fill in and say essentially a little bit about yourself, what you want to do with DAFNI. We've still going to need to go through an approval step, but but it's now a much more simple process. So please go to the DAFNI website, follow the links, and you'll get to this page to register. We're also just recently adding as a facility on the JEDS system. So if you're applying for grants, you can say, oh, I'd like to use DAFNI. That gives us a really useful indication of where the demand is, who wants to use us in the future. For others who are not UK researchers, very happy to give trial accounts, come and talk to us on application, try it out, see what there is. We're very happy to collaborate with you there. And we're also very open to being included on research grants or other grants to do particular tasks, particular developments. So please come and talk to us. And those are some of our details. Okay, so I think that's more or less all I had to say. So thanks very much for listening. As I said, most of the rest of the day, I think it's quite a full program. You're going to hear less about what DAFNI is, but a lot about what DAFNI is being used for, which I hope will be really interesting and exciting day. So thanks very much for being here, and hope you enjoy yourselves. Okay, thanks very much.